20 years ago, the City of Burnaby established the City Archives, a space dedicated to cataloging and organizing the history of our community.
The Archives is the place where all of the city's public records are stored, dating back to Burnaby's incorporations in 1892.
Anytime council takes a vote, anytime a Burnaby resident provides feedback at a public hearing, a record is sent to the archives for safekeeping.
When the records arrive, our talented team of archives staff will ensure the record is labeled, cataloged, and digitized for future reference.
Historical records from private residents and community organizations are also stored at the archives, providing a snapshot of life in Burnaby at any given point in our history.
And that's why the City Archives are so valuable. These records aren't just sitting in a closet somewhere collecting dust.
Thanks to the hard work of our archives staff, the history of our community can be traced back through these records.
Anyone can make an appointment and browse through every decision and debate that shaped our city.
The archives allows us to look back and learn from our mistakes or build on the great things that we have done in Burnaby.
So please, join me in thanking everyone who has contributed to keeping Burnaby's history alive at the City Archives. Congratulations on 20 years.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Pash and I'm the current City Archivist. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you today about the 20th anniversary of the City Archives. It's a big milestone for us, and we're so pleased that we have so much support and people are interested in participating in this video. So my start with the archives was as a photographer. Actually, I studied photography and I was working as a professional photographer when I got my first job in archives. And in that job, I learned how to describe photographs and the importance of making them accessible to the public. When I got my first job in the city of Burnaby in 2008, I was on a temporary job to describe photographs in our collection. And I would say that the most exciting photographs in our collection are glass plate negatives that were photographed by J.W. Phillips between 1911 and 1914. So this is so exciting for us because we can actually date these records so clearly because we know that he moved to Burnaby in 1911 and he actually went to war in 1914 and he died over there. So we know that these photographs were actually taken in that short time period. And they show us what Burnaby was like. And not only that, but they're beautiful images in themselves. They're beautiful objects. They're glass, there's painted emulsion on one side, and that painted emulsion is actually what the photographic image is actually affixed to that emulsion when the glass plate goes into the camera, the photograph is taken, and then the glass plate has to be processed through chemistry by the photographer, and then the negative would then go on to be printed. So this is quite an early photographic process, and talking about putting a glass plate into a camera probably sounds quite strange these days. Of course, many of us remember putting film into camera, but there's many of us now who would only know of taking a photograph with a digital camera, so putting a card in a camera rather than a roll of film. The other exciting project, I think, that involved photography for me at the City of Burnaby was when we did the Charting Change Atlas project. And we did this project in partnership with Heritage Burnaby Partners. So we worked with the planning department and the Burnaby Village Museum. And actually in recent years, the engineering department has come on board as well. And this Charting Change Atlas actually depicts Burnaby over time. And it's this incredible, it started from a map that the planning department had created called Charting Change, which charted the development of Burnaby over time. And then a genius idea by our now heritage planner to turn this into an interactive atlas online. And a big component of this interactive atlas is photographs. And so we had cataloged our photographs and determined how many we would be able to use, which sites we wanted to highlight in the Charting Change Atlas, and there were a number of sites that were missing. And so I was able to go and photograph those sites, and that was such an incredible project, and to be able to to join together my passion for photography and my passion for archives was such a satisfying job. And then I would say that the more recent work that we've done that has been really important to me as well, personally and professionally, is the work that we've done with the digital record preservation. So we've been able to preserve digital records at archives. We did this in partnership with the Information Technology Department, and now these records are going to be accessible forever. So of course digital records is a moving target. We're always going to be taking the latest steps, the latest advancements to ensure that these records are preserved. And it's something that really brings, I think it really shows that the archives is not only about the past, it's not only about the present, but it's also about the future. And we have an impact, our need to make sure that we capture the past and then we take it into the present, and then also the things that are happening in the city in the present. We're also making sure that any records of those actions and decisions are kept as well. And so there's a decision that comes from council, something that has been decided and acted on. We ensure that those records are kept, and then those records can be accessed so that in the future we can again build on the decisions that were made and make Burnaby better and better every year. So I feel like the archives really has a part to play in that, and I'm really proud of that. Happy anniversary, City of Burnaby Archives.
Hi, I'm Jim Wolf, the former heritage planner for the City of Burnaby. My start with Burnaby was over 35 years ago at Heritage Village, and one of the things that I got to do was start organizing the archives before there was even an archives. And I worked in a dark, dank basement on Deer Lake Avenue, and from that small beginning, 20 plus years ago, we have an archives today. When I think back about probably the most important thing that happened was in 1992, when we had our centennial. And one of the things about the centennial that really got the archives moving was the idea that the Heritage Commission, which I worked for, decided that the archives was probably the most important thing that we should do as a commission. And so we started a small working team within City Hall, and from that small beginning, the archives grew. And we had wonderful archivists right on through. We had Michelle Barocca, we had Arilee Sill, and of course Rebecca Pash. And I think because of all that professional assistance from the very beginning, the archives has grown into something wonderful and magical, and I'm so proud to have been part of it.
Hello, my name is Debbie Comas. I'm the retired city clerk for the City of Burnaby, and I was city clerk in 2011 when the archives first began. The archives were a passion project of the late councillor Doreen Lawson, and she brought the rest of council on board to establish a city archives at the Eileen Daly Library, which was currently under construction. The first archivist for the archives was Michelle Barocca, who later became the information and records manager for the City of Burnaby. She brought on Arilee Sill, who was a newly graduated archivist from the UBC Archival Studies program. The archives, as it is today, is due entirely to the work of Arilee and Michelle. The greatest achievement, I think, that they had was the introduction of the community archives into the city archives. The community archives had been operated by the Burnaby Historical Society for many, many years, and they were reluctant to bring it into the fold of the city. However, through the efforts of Arilee, she built up trust and rapport with the Burnaby Historical Society, and as a result was able to craft an agreement which council adopted to bring the community archives into the city archives, making it a complete set of records for researchers, students, and the public alike. It's hard to believe that it's been 20 years since we started the City of Burnaby Archives, but it is a tremendous resource to the city, and I am grateful for the opportunity to be part of it. So congratulations to the staff, council, and the City of Burnaby on having a wonderful resource for the people of Burnaby. Thank you.
This is Beth Davis. I'm Chief Librarian of the Burnaby Public Library, and I'm really thrilled to be able to congratulate the City of Burnaby Archives on a fabulous 20 years serving the people of Burnaby. It's great to work literally alongside you in the McGill branch, and I wish you every success for the future.
Hello, I'm Saab Taliwal. I wish to congratulate everyone involved in archiving. Congratulations on your 20th.
As one of the Burnaby councillors that was on council when the archives were created, I'd like to take this time to congratulate the Burnaby Archives on its celebratory year, and congratulate them both at the staff level and the many volunteers that you have. Burnaby has great records, and it's great. It's thankfully to you guys. We've been able to categorize many of the I would call ancient archives in the city, and the new catalog of agendas and such like that. You guys do a great job. Keep up the good work, and congratulations.
I'm Lisa Cott. I'm the Heritage Planner here at the city. And I'm probably one of the archive's frequent flyers, one of the people who accesses material from their collection on a regular basis, either online or in person. Several times a week, I'm referencing historical documents, either in person or visiting the archives. And those documents help me understand and interpret Burnaby's history. And it's really impressive the amount of material that the archives has and the amount of work that the staff have put into indexing and cataloging that material so that researchers like me can find what we're looking for. And one of my favorite things about the archives is that they not only have the records of the city, like council minutes and bylaws, but they have community records that have been donated by members of the community. So you really get a very complete story of Burnaby, more so than if it was only records of the city. My favorite thing about using the archives is when I come across something unexpected, especially if that item is important to someone. So for example, a while ago, I was working with a researcher named Julie Lee, who generously shared stories and documents of her family. And I really love the photographs of her mom, Ying Zheng, who was a little girl with a big personality in the 1920s. So one day when I was searching the Heritage Burnaby website, I unexpectedly found 2 class photos from the Douglas Road School in the 1920s that Julie's mom was in. I was excited to find these photos. For one reason was because we did not yet know whether Chinese Canadian students in Burnaby were segregated into separate classes in the 1920s. So that photo suggested that there was more integration in Burnaby. So the photo helped us solve kind of a larger historical mystery. But it also was great to call Julie and let her know that the photos existed because she'd never seen them before. And when you're able to share someone's family history with them, that's really an amazing feeling. And I think to me, the archives are really about people. The photographs and documents at the archives are more than documents, they're people's stories. And together, all of those stories tell a story of Burnaby and they connect us to each other. So 20 years from now, I hope that the archive is still going to be connecting people and documenting and sharing their individual stories as part of our collective story. And I'm sure technology is going to change, and I'm sure the types of material that they collect is going to change, but I'm pretty sure that putting people and their stories at the center of what they do is going to continue.
Hello. My name is Erilee Sill, and I was very privileged early in my career to be hired as the first full-time permanent archivist for the City of Burnaby Archives. We were so lucky in those early days to have strong leadership and support from the Community Heritage Commission, Mayor and Council, the City Manager's Office, and the Office of the City Clerk. And really, their willingness to invest in the new Archives initiative was really invaluable. And it's wonderful to see that that support and leadership has continued now for 20 years. We were also lucky to build strong partnerships with the wider heritage sector in the city. The Burnaby Village Museum, the Public Library, the Heritage Planning Program, they were all some of the earliest partners with the City Archives. And I think the work that I'm most proud of is that we did with the Burnaby Historical Society in 2006, when we merged the community archives with the city collection. The volunteer-based Historical Society had for decades been amassing an absolutely invaluable community collection, and consolidating that with the city archives really laid the groundwork for the Heritage Burnaby website and all of the projects and programs that have flowed from that. Although I left the city in 2013 to return to my home province of Nova Scotia, I've been thrilled to watch the Heritage Burnaby program continue to thrive. There's been the addition of oral histories and expanded resources that have been made available online. It's really wonderful to see how the program has grown and the community outreach that's been developed under the current leadership. So I think my hope for the next 20 years would be that this work continues to capture the voices and the collective memory of the citizens of Burnaby. So congratulations to the city on reaching this milestone. Best of luck for the next 20 years, and I can just look forward to continue watching you grow and develop. Thank you very much for letting me be part of your celebrations. Thanks.
I'm Councillor Pietro Calendino, and I think it's fascinating to visit the Burnaby's archives, and I want to wish them a happy 20th anniversary.
Hey, I'm City Councillor Joe Keithley. City Archives, happy 20th, and keep up the good work.
Hi, my name's Diane Gillis. I'm a resident of Burnaby for the last 39 years. And prior to that, I worked as a public health nurse through all the parts of the city. And my earliest memories of Burnaby go back to about 65 years ago when my grandparents, who had come from Northern Ireland to move to Burnaby. I'm now so honored to be a City of Burnaby Heritage Commissioner and to be learning more about where our city has come from to the great place it now is. I've learned so much more about what Burnaby has traveled through to be where we are today, the people of Burnaby in years past. So what has made Burnaby the great city it is through the great history that we have accessible through the archives. I would hope that the archives continue as they have done over the last 20 years. I know there'll be greater opportunities just as technology expands, but the people piece in it I know will always be there because the City of Burnaby staff working in the archives and otherwise for the city and the community members that are contributing really have brought us to have a wonderful history and knowledge of our city, where it has been, to bring it to where it is now. Staff, please be very proud, and to others who've contributed to the archives, and celebrate the days to come.
Hi, I'm Rainey Kent, and I'm a relatively new Burnaby Heritage Commission member. To help me understand the origins and history of many of our Burnaby landmarks, parks, and buildings, I have referenced the city's archived publications, photos, and past council meeting reports often. I recently researched the history of Barnett Marine Park. I found in the archives the complete book, In the Shadows of the Sea, Recollections of Burnaby's Barnett Village by contributors Jim Wolfe and Harry Pride. What an incredible discovery. What is going on around us today will be our archived history tomorrow. It is imperative that we continue to document what has made or is making our city the remarkable place that it is and has become, and the citizens who lay or have laid the foundation for our growth, development, and future. Congratulations to the city's archives for 20 years of fabulous work.
Hello, I'm Richard Anlou, a Heritage Commissioner for the City of Burnaby. I want to first acknowledge and recognize that Burnaby is located on the ancestral and unceded homelands of the Coast Salish, particularly the Ho'okaminam and Squamish-speaking peoples. I wish to express my congratulations on the 20th anniversary of the Burnaby Archives. It's truly wonderful to see the preservation of the city's rich heritage with public records dating back to 1892. I'm particularly fond of the portrait of Dr. Sun Yat-sen behind me, as it sits here in the Wei Sung Yuen Wat Ki and Company herbalist shop inside the Burnaby Village Museum. For those who don't know Dr. Sun Yat-sen, he is known somewhat as the George Washington of China. And this portrait of Dr. Sun was actually taken by a prolific photographer, Mr. Yichou Chao, either in 1910 or 1911 to be exact. Mr. Chao captured thousands of faces of all backgrounds in the early days of BC, and I'm sure even some of Burnaby's earliest citizens. As you can see, Burnaby has a very rich history, bound by all backgrounds and linkages within its heritage collection and archives. It's wonderful to see Burnaby continue to tell stories of all those who made this diverse city what it is today through preservation. Congratulations, Burnaby Archives. I look forward to the next 20 years and beyond.